That's what the studio is. You play what you know. You don't, yeah, unless, depending. But in this case, you play what you know. You don't try to get cute. You don't push, because time is money.
Yeah.
Right? And so you play what you know.
You want to do it right. Once.
Right.
The second time is a bonus. You want to just get it right the first time.
That's right.
Fuck, you should have talked to me before this, you son of a bitch. I'm gonna intro this just for the people, and welcome back to another episode of UNSUNG. I appreciate everybody, tuning in and checking this out. And my next guest is a friend, and a damn good one, and a hell of a player, a hell of a musician, a great guy. And I don't want to say that he's getting old, but I asked him, how he's doing lately, and he said great. I woke up this morning, took a big shit, and then I got out of bed, and so anyway, I'm kidding. His name, and most people know him, and I think everybody loves him, Mr. Stefano Valdo. How the hell are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man.
Good.
It's such a pleasure to be here.
It's good to sit with you.
You're killing me.
When's the last time we sat together? It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been a while.
I know.
A year ago? Maybe longer.
I keep trying to ignore you, but you keep calling me.
We did a session at
A jam session, remember?
Where was that?
I think it was Cava.
Okay, yeah, man, that was a while ago.
It was a year ago.
Really? I sort of just remember that.
not a happy one, but it was a year ago, I think.
Yeah, I don't know who that was with. So, look, I know a little bit about you, but the people that I think, could stand to use to know more about you, I'd like you just to explain you to me and to us. And so what I mean is, I want to know where you come from. I know you're Godfather territory, so I want to be careful any questions I ask you. Because you could have me hurt. The horse head in the bed, the whole nine. So I know that you're an Italian guy.
Yes.
And I don't hold that against you.
Please don't.
I love you. You know that. So
Please, just explain to me anyway for a minute where you came from.
Well, you know that stuff. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking.
About us and background and things. Well, I was born in Italy, right on the Dolomites, very small town, 30,000 people.
now, what's a Dolomite?
Village. A Dolomite?
Yeah.
It's a rock.
A rock. Okay.
It's a specific rock. It looks like reddish, and it's only in that particular area. It's like a northeast, central east of Italy.
So anywhere on the planet.
That's the only place the Dolomites exist.
That's it.
Interesting.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Happened.
All right.
Don't ask me how. My son is in geology, probably could give you the answer. I don't. But anyway.
How is that boy doing, by the way? Is he doing good?
Yeah.
Your kid?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, totally.
How's the young one, the girl?
I couldn't be
Breaking hearts yet?
happier.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know just yet, but I'm sure.
She's probably too afraid, kind of like Donald Trump. You don't want to bring him home.
No.
You don't want to do that.
No.
You don't want to see this standing at the front door when you show up.
Oh, gee, no.
That's a scary proposition.
I thought of that many times, and
Trust me, that thought just really gave me the creeps. But anyway, I'm trying to get over with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But back to my background, I don't know if I told you this, but I was born a musician, and I didn't even know it.
What do you mean? Explain that. I don't know what you mean.
I was always attracted to music since I was very, very young. I'm talking about 4. So my aunt was the only artist in the family, but she was a painter. And I was getting into that kind of stuff. But I was always associating music with images. To me, when I was listening to, back then, my father was playing classical music as an opera.
kind of stuff.
What did he do? Just on the, what do you mean? Like on the record player?
Yeah. For lunch.
And we had lunch. Every time at lunch, we had music. And my father was like,
He took it seriously.
just eat, be silent, listen to the music, eat your food, don't talk.
What a great education.
Well, yes, on the retrospective, yes, it was a great education. At the time, I didn't feel in that way.
Right.
I was listening to Maria Callas, and I was like, do we really have to listen to this?
I mean, and then, you know.
Can we put a Zeppelin record on?
Exactly. Yeah. Can you put some Yes records on it?
But no, we were listening to educated music, and that actually built my musicality, my background, my foundation. You know, and every time I go and write some music, I have those days back in my mind, and I hear that music as a foundation, and I can't get away from that. Anytime, and you know, quite a few of my compositions actually are pretty classical oriented, rather than pop or jazz, right?
Crisis, I think a Crisis.
Christmas is one of the most,
you know, obvious example of that.
Yeah.
So that was good. In retrospective, it was great. At that time, I didn't understand it. But we went, you know, I got through that. And all of a sudden, because friends, they introduced me to different kind of music, educated friends. So musically speaking, and I started listening to progressive rock. I never got into like really rock and roll and pop stuff. I was a progressive guy. So we're talking about Yes, King Crimson. We're talking about Genesis in a way, Jethro Tull, and those guys. You know. So I was pretty much into that stuff, and I started playing that stuff. I started listening and finding people who wanted to play that stuff.
And what age would you have been at that point?
12, 13.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So from the time that you were sitting there having lunch up until 12 or 13, what were you doing? Did you live in the same city, and did you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was all opera kind of stuff, like I said, and classical music. You know, from Bartok to Mozart and Beethoven, Debussy, and you know, all those guys, and they were. And I was listening. I was eating my food and listening. It was like, okay.
And your family took it seriously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's like I said. That's a great education.
Like in retrospective, yes, it was at the time.
I was a little too young to understand that, but thanks to my father, yes.
Yeah.
It was a great education.
Which must have helped to, you know, aid you in becoming the player you are today.
In some sense.
It is funny. I just want to. Okay, so this is the story. My mother bought a classical guitar, a luthier handmade guitar, for my father, because she thought, okay, you know, there's so much music into this man that maybe he would like to learn to play guitar. Turned out he didn't care. He tried a couple of months to play this thing, and he couldn't figure it out how to do it. It was too much for him. So the guitar was sitting in the corner for a couple of months, and I was like, I wonder what it is. Why doesn't it like that? So I picked it up and I started messing around with that, and my mother heard me, and she was like, would you like some lessons? And I said, well, why not? So she enrolled me in the conservatory, the local conservatory, and I started taking lessons with the guy. So I reached to I was 8, so I reached to grade 5. I finished my grade 5 classical guitar. Conservatory. And all of a sudden, I had a friend who owned a music store. And every day I used to go and see him, and he was like, hey, check this out. Every day he has some new stuff coming in, right? So, you know, in the old days they had the booths. So you go into the booth, you put You put headphones on, and you tell him what you want to listen to. So you grab the record, put it on, and you listen to it. You spend hours in this places just listen to your favorite. Exactly what
we don't do it that way these days.
So one day
he called me up, say, "Hey, come over, see me." So I walked into the store in the afternoon, and I heard this thing. I was like, "What is this? This is the sound I want. This is how I want to sound like." You know what the record was? He was playing Black Market.
Really? Yeah.
And it was Jaco.
Right.
I didn't know who Jaco was. I didn't care who Jaco was.
Right.
What I cared about is the sound, and I thought, that's it. That is me. That's, So.
And how old were you then?
13.
Yeah, 13. So.
And that's a great song. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, it was a great experience, and I thought, okay, I love guitar, but that's where I want to. That's my direction. So I realized he goes like, oh, he's a bass player. So I'm like, oh, really? What kind of bass does he play? What's it, fretless bass? Really? What does that mean? Well, fretless means that you don't have the frets. So how can I do that? Well, you buy a fretless bass.
You dummy! I mean, come on.
So I didn't. I talked to a couple of friends, and they said, okay, well, there was a great deal. A semi-hollow Gibson bass, and I bought it for a couple $100. And I said, well, I want that sound. So I took it to the luthier, and he took the frets off, which was
really?
blasphemous. We're talking about a Gibson 61.
didn't
just
know what I was
file
doing.
off.
It was like, it was a criminal, completely criminal.
But I started playing, fretless stuff.
Did it work?
It worked great, but he didn't have the sound that I was looking for.
Okay, all right.
So I had to move on and find other instruments to get me close to it. So I became a clone, and it took me years to realize you don't want to do that. You want to have your own voice. So it took me at least 10 years to get away from the Jaco sound and
from 13 to 23.
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
To become,
I was playing along with all the Weather Report albums, and I've learned Teen Town when I was 15 years old, and I thought, actually I was taking lessons with a great Italian bass player, Stefano Valdo, he died a couple of 10 years ago or something like that. And I remember one session with him, and I said, you know what, I want to learn how to play Donna Lee like Jaco. And he said, and it was epiphany, he said, why? Why do you want to play Donna Lee like Jaco? Just be you. Pick something else and play it the way you want it, the way you feel. Jaco is Jaco. It's done.
Right.
It's a done deal.
Right.
Be your own player. Be your own. Find your own voice. And then that day, it just turned. I was aiming in this direction, and all of a sudden he said no. And I was like, yes. Okay. Thank you.
That's kind of the problem we have today, isn't it? I think I see it a lot, especially in things, because there's so many cover bands now. You know what I mean? And everybody wants you to play it like the record.
But it's easy.
All you have to do is just listen to the parts.
But my question is the same as
Mr. Cherry's, which is why.
Why?
Why do you want to do that? I mean, it's already a record to me is a picture. It's a snapshot. It's a moment in time. Right? You're not going to look that way in 5 years. Guys that record their shit and go on tour don't play it like the record when they play it, unless you're some pop act that has to, remain.
If you play pop
married
music,
to
you have to play it note by note.
But that's a production thing. If you play a different kind of music that allows you to stretch, to be yourself and still add to the music, that's where I'm at. You know, I mean, sure, we do have to pay the bills and everything, so you can do that. But you have to remember who you are. You have to remember that you can play by the rules, or by the style rules, for a reason. But you have to remember who you are. And you have to find time to play music, to play your voice,
Sure.
to express yourself, and within the limits of the style. It doesn't matter. You can play R&B music, but look at James Emerson. See, those bass lines are open to interpretation as long as you fit the style. James Emerson wasn't married to those bass lines. If you would have seen James Emerson playing live shows, doing those tunes, those, you know, like Motown things, every night probably will be slightly different. I'm sure he would have put an accent here and there,
Right.
that it would be part of the moment,
Right.
you know.
And shouldn't it be?
I mean, it's music,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Right. It's meant
And
to
he knew
create.
it. He knew it. That's why it was great.
Yeah. So I was going to, you know, save this question for later, but it's come up, you know, pretty quick. And I was going to get your take, because lately I've been having discourse with individuals. And I've seen it on Facebook a little bit, people asking this question about groove, right? And I'm somewhat perplexed by not the adherence to groove, but the definition or the worship of groove. You know, like the
Worship
fact
of
that,
groove.
well, the fact that you don't need to play anything, that the groove is enough and stands on its own. And I guess, you know, I don't disagree with that. I think that, but, you know, groove is just an absolute. Groove is, it's like being a comedian and, you know, and then asking if he's funny.
Be in the moment.
Well, but you know, if you're a comedian, you have to be funny. If you're a musician, especially a drummer or a bass player, or any instrument for that matter, you have to groove. You know, it's like a comedian. If you're going to be a comedian, you have to be funny, right? So you know, just in terms of groove, I understand it, but and you should never get away from groove. Is inherent in everything you play, right? Whether it's time or fills or anything that you do, your groove is always represented in whatever you play. But to work on groove means that, because people, I've sort of seen it, that people want to define groove or not define groove because it's something super spiritual. And yet groove itself has very tangible precepts, you know, like time, subdivision, right? Placement, listening. These are all physical attributes. They're not spiritual ones. And people yet sort of, you know, sort of glorify groove as if it's something intangible.
Okay.
And I don't really see it that way. What do you think?
What I think is,
The grooves, it's a moment, it's a feel that you build up. You cannot build up groove if you have no sense of time. You have to know where the time is. The groove is a manipulation of the time to make things feel good. You cannot make things feel good if you don't know where the pulse is. So, like a drummer is, in my opinion, the timekeeper. The bass player is the feel keeper. I cannot state a groove without your help. If I have a great drummer like you, I can manipulate the time and make it feel good. That's groove. If I have a lousy drummer, I'm lost in the middle of the desert. I cannot make things happening.
So what does that mean, though? The time? Does that mean the placement of the notes? Does that mean the subdivision?
Pulse.
Right.
Pulse. You have to know where.
So you're talking about you need a drummer to keep a constant pulse?
It's subliminal.
Okay.
If you have somebody that you can relate to, we both know where the time is. It's an understanding.
An unspoken
understanding. But we can manipulate it to make everything feel good. Now, there are, in my opinion, two kinds of grooves. There is a commercial groove and an educated groove. A commercial groove is when you make an audience feel good because you hit something that is understandable from everybody. But an educated groove is when you manipulate the pulse to a point that is only acceptable or understandable from educated musicians. That's a little bit egotistic kind of decision.
Right.
But if you read into the audience, if you have, let's say, you do a club gig, okay? You got to read the audience. You know, you play Good Times by the Chic. You got to know where the groove is. You got to make them feel good and dance.
Right.
Right? But if you do, let's say, a jazz jam or where musicians are attending in the audience, you can do Cantaloupe Island and you can imply the pulse that everybody knows where the one is, everybody knows where the groove is, but you manipulate it to a point that people goes like, oh man, how did they come up with that idea? That's a different kind of groove.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to get my head around that for a second. And it's not that I'm disagreeing with you, I just want to think about it because, you know, in a sense, I mean, if you're talking about a danceable group for people, you know, to dance to, and I understand it, I mean, you know, from time immemorial, you know, from the beginning of time to the beginning of music and rhythm, people, I'm sure, were dancing to it, and that was the function, that was part of the function of music, was so that people could dance and celebrate. Right?
Exactly.
Or mourn.
Yeah.
Or do a
Jungle Boogie. You can't get away from that.
Kiss by Prince. You know, you have to play the game, but you have to put it in a way that people feel it. So it's about the bass player and the drummer to play that tempo, to play that kind of lines, then with a little extra gear. You have to make them feel good.
With intent.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
You have to believe it. You have to believe every single note you play. You cannot play Kiss by Prince or Jungle Boogie, you know, or whatever. You name it. All those beautiful R&B, funk composition that need an extra effort from the rhythm section to make it feel right. Because you just play it because if you play the notes right straight out of the album with no meaning,
what does it matter?
What does it matter?
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. If I can, you know, as a jazz musician, it's fine. But if I take an R&B gig or a rock gig or even a country gig, every single note to me matters. It matters the style of music you play. If you don't follow that principle, don't take the gig. You're a fluke.
Okay, so do you think that that's
part of where groove comes from then? Is caring?
Correct.
And intention?
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Totally.
Right. Now those are the more esoteric elements of groove, aren't they? However, as a drummer, I know this much. I know that if your subdivisions are shit, like I did, you know, I did this record a while ago, years ago, and I was working, you know, through 5 notes in a beat, 7 notes in a beat, you know, all the notes in a beat.
Oh, you're a master manipulating the beat. I mean, I know that.
Right, but you know, this was a pretty straight ahead session, right? And so the engineer, he said, well, what are you working on these days? And I said, well, I'm working on all the notes in a beat, like triplets and then sixteenths and fives and sixes and sevens. And he said, well, why? What do you need to know that for? And I said, well, because, if I'm informed about fives and sevens and 13s and 17s, if I can put 17 notes in a beat, that's just going to make my 16th notes stronger. It means that I'm going to understand even greater the space between those notes. If I know how to place 17 notes into a beat, I can certainly place 4, right? And so, for me, there is both. There are the esoteric elements of groove that have to be felt, like intention and things like that. But there's also the practical ones, like subdivision, right? Which creates groove. Subdivision creates groove. Depending on what subdivision you play, as a matter of fact, it determines a lot what style you're playing.
Well, subdivisions create options for you.
Mm-hmm. Because you already always know where you're at. So you can choose. Mm-hmm. But if you don't subdivide, but you go just straight from the main beat, and you can get lost anytime.
Right. So the
subdivision will keep you on track.
Sure. And so the answer, I think,
to this dilemma is that groove, or whatever we want to call it, is found in both the temporal and the non-temporal, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And so once again, this conversation has been coming up to me, and I think that in some ways, the adults in the room don't need to have this conversation, because we know we don't need to inform each other that you have to groove. I mean, because I'm as old as I am now, and you're as old as you are, and we know we've probably been fired off for a few gigs because we couldn't groove. But that doesn't happen at 52. That happens at 19, or 25 or something like that, where you're still working your shit out, and somebody's saying, that's just not grooving hard enough, and you're not quite there. But the adults in the room, I don't think, need to have this discussion. I think that we need to inform another generation and help them understand what it means to groove. And those things, like I said, are both physical and non-physical.
It's not an easy topic. I mean, you might find some talented students that they get the idea, but they cannot apply it. They still don't know how to put it together. It's all about experience. There is a combination of talent on one way and experience on the other way. Mm-hmm. If you have the talent, you get there earlier and faster, but you still need some experience from the old cats.
Sure.
To read through it. You have to read through the polls to understand how you can make it feel good, which is groove.
That's why guys coming out of college and university are still falling on their ass, because they have a lot of training.
Yeah.
They got chops, they got, all that stuff, which you need. It's important. It's very important. You need to know the instrument. Mastery is just not groove, but they don't have the experience to match with everything they know.
Well, that's a 50%.
And the other 50% is it's you get it or not. So we can find musicians with a great sense of time, but no sense of groove, and vice versa. So how do you detect, or how do you deal with those two different categories of musicians? I mean, the best of both worlds is it's a player with good time that can also groove. Those are the AA class musicians, right? The one who gets the gigs around the world. Mm-hmm. But right. You might find actually a completely unknown musicians with a great sense of time, meaning you can sight read whatever you want, you can just play it without missing a beat, but it's a machine. It's just like a machine. Sometimes it works, but sometimes a certain situation you might find a leader and he goes like, you know what, you're a great musician, but I need somebody else. I need something else. Maybe you need a little lousier musicians, but when he gets behind the instrument, it makes everything feel good. It connects the dots.
Do you think so, though?
Do you think that you need to find a lousier musician or just another musician that's just as great as that guy?
No. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that a lousier musician can groove versus a musician that knows exactly where the time is. I'm saying that the best combination is a great musician with time and a sense of groove, which is experience and feel.
Right. And shouldn't we
Be, what's the word, producing that in today's society? I mean, shouldn't we
Oh,
be
absolutely.
producing both?
Absolutely.
Because in this geography, I mean, in this location that you and I currently sit in, I hear a lot of talk about groove, and people are shy about the technical aspects of the instrument, you know? And for me, I've never really seen a shitty player that knew the technical elements of the instrument, because if you're going to go that far and be that good at the technical side of things, you're going to be more well-rounded. You're going to understand more than just the technical side of things. You know
Well,
what I mean?
it's, in my opinion, see,
Being a second language, I've learned a big deal the way I've learned English. It's about the language. You might find some players that actually they're very knowledgeable about the language, about the style of music they're playing. So they're playing it correctly. Are they perfectly in time, or are they perfectly legit, technically speaking? Maybe not. But they know the language, they speak the language. You know, it's better, it's like being a broken English, in my opinion, some foreigner broken in English,
Right.
you know. They have a grip of the language, but they know how to communicate. You know.
Can you give me?
You know, like an example of that, because for me, I can't think of anyone that could be an example for that. If I think of Dave Weckl, I think of a guy that has both. If I think of Vinnie Colaiuta, I think of a guy that has both. If I think of John Abercrombie, I think of a guy that has both. I can't think of a person that is sort of less at their instrument, or you know, knows the language, like whatever you're saying, and doesn't know how to communicate that. I mean, let me say this though, that idiomatically, I think there is a difference. I swing, you know, like a lead hammer. You know what I mean? Like swing is not. That's why, you know, the John McCaslins of the world, I love. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have him on pretty soon, and over the next couple of weeks. And I did a gig about a year ago. It was a jazz, kind of a, you know, pseudo jazz gig, and I just did not feel good about myself. You know, it was not one of those moments where I'm creating a lot of good feelings for me, and so, you know, I'm trying to swing and read, and you know, and I'm just like, because it's not my thing, and so, you know, I was talking to one of the guys on the break, you know, and John McCaslin came up, and I was telling him, you know, sort of like because the guys that were on the gig were, you know, some pretty good players, right? And so I said, you know, like, you know, when I'm sitting with you guys, man, it's like I'm getting a clinic. You know, like I'm really getting educated, you know, sitting here trying to swing behind you guys and fight this out, you know. And they're like, oh man, you know, the guy that I was talking to was like, oh, well, you know, like that's what it's like playing with John McCaslin. And, you know, I kind of stopped for a second, like, oh, you know, fuck you. But I got over that very quickly, because I knew what he was saying. He was saying, you know, John just really knows that shit. And so idiomatically,
He does.
He does. He really fucking does. That's a guy, not only, you know, does he play well, but he's a benevolent spirit. You know, he's a guy that for me is about other people, and I really like that about
well, he's serious
him and people
about his craft. Serious.
very.
You know, that's what makes the difference in a musician. You know, I mean, if you're serious about your craft, if you're serious about history of the music that you want to play, the style that you embrace, you know, you better know what you're talking about. Otherwise, if you have to know the players. You know, you have to know where you are coming from. otherwise, you're not going anywhere if you don't know who set, the roads for you. Maybe it's just like it's a cliche, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. You have to know the players before you.
Right, absolutely.
You're not gonna
invent anything new. You just interpret whatever is being laid out before you.
Well, I think,
just take your own take.
I think you can create something new.
I just think that you
your own
won't,
take.
you won't do it until you learn who came before you.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that, that's just another thing we get wrong. I know I go to a lot of clinics, or I have. There's not a lot of clinics anymore, is there? But I used to go to a lot of clinics. And guys would want to know, what drum fill did you do in bar 39 of some fucking song, right? And I never wanted to ask that question. My question was, what did you study? And who did you study with? And what was the material that got you to play the way you play? I don't give a shit what fill you did, and to some extent, if it were Vinny, I'd probably ask him a couple of those. But when I landed on the Berkeley guys that Vinny and Steve Smith and so many other people studied with, then it opened up. Then all of a sudden, my understanding was broadened, and I understood. I could listen to Vinny, and I could go, "Oh my God, he's playing a group of 5. He's playing a group of 7." If Vinny just told me what he played in bar 38, I still wouldn't know what 5 is. I just know that the lick, and I don't want to know licks, and that's in my online teaching stuff. I might get into licks as I go, but I'm not doing that without foundation. And so right now, all I'm doing is teaching foundation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I want people to know 5s and 7s because that's what guys use when you hear this cool shit they play. But if I just show you the cool shit they play, you haven't learned anything. I've given you a fish instead of teaching you how to fish.
But that's why
I still appreciate when people go to blues jams, because as a rhythm player, as a bass player, I'm not talking for other instruments, but as a player, I go to a blues session, a blues jam session, and I play one note at a time. And that's what it's all about. That is the essence of the blues, especially as a bass player. There are many things you have to keep in mind when you play the blues, taking away the history behind it. But you have to feel it. You have to feel what that genre comes from and what you're supposed to play in terms to respect the music.
The history of
the history. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a bass player, you go to a jam, a blues jam, you're not Jaco Pastorius. You keep it together. Mm-hmm. You make everybody feel good. Very simple, solid. Groove. Mm-hmm. Keep it grooving. Look around. Everybody's smiling. You're doing your job. Mm-hmm. If everybody's looking around and you catch the guitar player or the drummer going like, that was a little overhead, then you're not doing that thing.
I've never done that.
You're not doing the right thing.
I've never done that to you.
No,
I've never done that.
No, I'm not talking.
Okay, maybe once or twice, on occasion. What the fuck was that?
Well, that's
that's a story about bass players, right? Mm-hmm. If you play simple, you make a groove, and all of a sudden you add a little note because you want to be fancy, and everybody's like, "What was that? Don't do that again."
No, we even in the country shit, with Sarah,
Beth Keeley, right? That we used
Absolutely.
to do. We used to have a shitload of fun, and that
Maybe
kind
too much.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe if one of us was drunk. And it wouldn't have been me. But no. That's where I counter your not your argument. It's not an argument. I think what you're saying is sound. I think it's very true and very correct. But if that were the case, we wouldn't have Robin Ford.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and that's not that if Robin Ford doesn't go to a legit blues jam, he's not going to probably fuck around like he does on his record, maybe. All right? But we do look for those opportunities to grow and expand music, because it's almost like I mean, if all we knew of the universe was that the Earth was flat, and I know that's coming back, but
That's a discussion for another day.
but if that's all we knew of the universe, and we just wanted to stay there, that's not enough. We would be considered stupid if we didn't want to know more, right? And it just so happens that we do know more. We now know that there's probably at least 2 trillion galaxies in our universe, right? I mean, just what, 100 years ago, we thought we were it. And now we know there's 200 or 2 trillion galaxies with what is it, 1 billion, or yeah, with 1 billion planets in each fucking galaxy.
I don't know, my head is spinning already. so
Right,
just
that's what I'm
stop.
saying. But isn't it sort of our burden as musicians to inform and to push each other? I mean, I know when we did those country gigs, you and I pushed each other. I remember playing with Jason
Yeah.
Graham,
Yeah.
you know, our friend and great guitar player. That
Yes.
him and I, we used to do this thing where we'd be playing a train beat, and he'd be doing a solo in this, and he was learning, you know, the Gary Chapey, you know, 5 and 7 note phrasing, right? He actually is the only musician that's ever sat down with me, guitar player anyway, and asked me, you know, I want to learn those phrases, right? And so he'd been working on it for a while, and we talked, you know, before the country gig or whatever, and I'm like, well, you know, we came up with this idea. Well, why don't we, when we get halfway through your solo, why don't you play like the head to a cartoon to begin with, right? So like Inspector Gadget, right? And that's a Ray Montana thing, actually, and I have to give credit to Ray Montana because
He used to do Inspector Gadget all the time,
and I used to, you know, just make you laugh,
Right.
I love Ray. Yeah, great player.
yeah, and God bless him, he's coming on this show, God damn it, and we're going to talk.
talk because he has to give an answer for himself. I learned so much from him. But anyway, so we came up with this idea that halfway through the solo, so that we could cue each other, he'd play Inspector Gadget, and then for like a bar or 2 bars, we go down, and then he'd finish off the second part of his solo. And you don't hear that much in country.
I wonder why.
Right, if ever. But I'll tell you what, nobody in the crowd ever didn't dig it. It gave us joy to you know, to just be able to connect that way. Of course, the bass player didn't. We never told him, so he was a little fucked up when it came to that part.
Was it called Unprepared?
A little unprepared when we hit him with that.
But there was humor in that.
Who was on bass, by the way? Okay, don't say the
I
name.
can't say the name. I can't say the name. He doesn't play a lot, but you know, nobody stopped dancing.
He shouldn't do it. He should have done it.
I know.
Bad boy.
Poor thing, bad boy, yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it was, nobody stopped dancing. Nobody, you know, looked weird except the singer and the bass player because we didn't tell them. But there was humor in that, and everybody.
I love that.
Huh?
I love that. Humor
Isn't it
in music
great?
is a great element.
Right.
People forget about it. Humor in music is a great element, and people are fearful to, you know, to involve in that. They shouldn't.
Right. Not when you are
seeking mastery. You know what I mean? I mean, you can, you know, in the hands of the professional. I think.
At the end of the day, it's just music.
Right. Anything is
Just
okay.
have fun.
right. I
People
think
are
so.
too cerebral about it. You know, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Why?
Well, not only are we too cerebral, but I think we're too pandering.
Yeah.
We give people what they want far too much.
We're losing the sense of fun.
We are.
I mean, not we, but you know, in general.
Right. The masses overall.
People, some musicians, they take themselves too seriously. You know, it's just they're losing the sense of music, the essence.
Well, they really do. And you know,
You called me not too long ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember. And you know, you were thinking about, you know, sort of revisiting
Yes.
some of your material again.
Yes.
And I mean, God damn it, you know, I would do that in a heartbeat, number one.
Oh, we'll do that.
Yeah. Number two, though, you know, I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking, that's tough to do. Because, you know, if you want to pursue your own thing, this whole duality of, the social schism that we live in, that, you have to pay the bills, and so you got to play dummy shit, and, you got to do other things just to do that, where I think, I know the music you've created, and unfortunately, not that many people do, because not a lot of them heard the fusion record that we did. And, I think that for me, there is great appreciation for the material that you wrote, and certainly some of the stuff that Jason wrote was great to dig into. I still think that there's one solo he did on that record that I've never played behind a better guitar solo. Not on record, for sure.
It was a good album.
Yeah.
Good project.
Yeah.
Very heartfelt.
Right.
There was a lot of work, a lot of heart, soul put into it.
Right.
I love that album.
And a lot of beauty,
I love it. I still love it.
Yeah. And a lot of...
A lot of all of us went into that record. A lot of our mentalities and where we come from. And I think the thing that I liked about the record was the fact that nobody judged anybody on the music itself, right? I mean, I could interpret it the way I wanted to, and you would give me free rein. You might have an idea or a thought, right? But I could play. I could be myself.
An open book.
Yeah.
Everybody could write whatever they want, and nobody would judge it. That was the concept, my concept behind that project. Everybody's equal. Everybody's just put the right idea, and everybody is supposed to understand it, respect it, and take the chance, take the risk to say, okay, I might not really feeling that way, but if Gavin feels like that's how it's supposed to be, it's gonna work. And you know what? It did work. I think the album was great. I think actually I'm very proud of that album.
Me too.
Nowadays I'm still proud of it.
Yeah.
How much did we sell? Probably 300 copies. Who cares? But it's about the legacy. It's about the legacy. It's about the legacy.
I care. I care.
That's my whole contention. Is that I care? If Britney Spears can be selling what she's selling, and so many people can, because we are told that that's good music and that that's the music we need to listen to. I'm not saying, I understand that if you're not educated, maybe you need to listen to things that aren't as lofty as what we created, but still there has to be a more discerning, a more global discerning audience than the one that exists and the one that is diminishing every day.
No, why?
Why?
There's no right or wrong. If Britney Spears sells 50 million copies of her album, you know what? Good for her.
But isn't it? No. I'm not Britney Spears. I'm not shitting on Britney Spears.
Bruno Mars or whatever,
No,
I mean,
and I have
it's
some respect for a guy like Bruno Mars. I mean, if you
say the name.
I mean, they work hard.
Right. My problem isn't that. My problem is the fact that
that's 50 million records that people are buying. It has nothing to do with Britney Spears. God bless her. It's not really my concern. My concern is the 50 million people that bought that record. That's what we are saying we want. That we don't want to be educated anymore. We want to be pandered to.
Yeah, but why
We want
don't you
everything
think
easy.
they buy 50 millions?
Copies of your album or our album. What do you think that?
why do I think they don't?
Because I don't think it's easily understood.
Right.
So you take responsibilities for what you're doing. You know exactly. When we went into the studio, we knew that our style of music, our decision that we made about our musical directions were not going to be a popular
Decision.
We're going to pull us away from the masses.
Exactly.
Right.
So we did it
Yeah.
because we felt.
and we believed in the project. And that I lost a lot of money on that project.
I know you did.
But I don't. It doesn't matter. What we left is a legacy, actually, and I want to do something to back it up eventually, because it's worth it. Because one day, we will reach the 11th hour, we'll pull the leg, and you look back and you go, okay, what have I done to be proud in my life? And that album is something I'm proud of. How many copies did we sell? Did we sell? 400 copies?
Right.
I don't give a crap. But those
I hear what
400
you're saying.
copies, of those 400 people who bought that album. Thank you.
Maybe we touched 400 people.
Thank you guys for appreciating and supporting something completely off stream.
Yeah, I understand what
Frank
you're
Zappa
I
didn't do
understand
it for
what
the
you're
money.
saying.
Frank Zappa wrote so much great music.
All right.
And most of it, nobody gives a damn about it.
That's very true.
Frank Zappa's my hero.
Right, but he wasn't happy about that.
He wasn't happy about the fact that no, he wasn't. You
Yeah,
know
he
that.
wasn't.
You know
He
in
wasn't.
interviews,
No, I know.
he goes back to the '60s about the music industry.
He wasn't happy about the music. No. What Frank wasn't happy, as far as I can remember from what I see from the interviews, he wasn't happy, not the audience. He wasn't happy about the A&R people not educating the audience about the music.
But that's my point.
That's my point, is that 50 million people are buying a record that they're being told is good. To me, it's lambs to the slaughter.
Well, I drive on the freeway every day from north to south, sometimes twice a day. And on the rush hour, especially today, it was a little warm, so I rolled down the windows, and guess what? I got this kind of, a little truck behind me or beside me playing some music, and it played so loud that I could hear it from my car, and in my car, and I wonder, what are you listening to? Honestly, is that what you're listening to? I mean,
The answer is yes. That's what he's
yeah, but you know what? Just put some classic rock on it. Listen to the Eagles. Listen to bands that made a difference in music history. But you're listening to this kind of, and
Right.
To a point that is loud enough to get annoying. There's no melody. There's no bass line.
Right.
There's just
It's all quantized.
it's all quantized, and it's just like
Right.
anybody can do it.
There's no groove.
No,
There's no feel.
no.
Right.
There's no feel.
Right.
There's no soul. There's no heart.
Yeah.
So why do you listen for that? Are you so bored in life that you listen to that stuff? Without even caring what you're listening to?
It's craft dinner, right? It tastes good.
But there's nothing good in it for you.
Yeah, well, it tastes good here.
Right.
But it doesn't.
Right.
Doesn't
It's
do
going to
anything
wreck your.
down here,
It's going
right?
to wreck your fucking stomach. That's
So
for sure.
you wonder, but yeah, it's not their fault.
Nothing against craft dinner. And
No.
In case somebody from Kraft is watching this, which
You can have some Parmesan. It's all good.
I mean, 6 people can't be wrong. Right?
No. But I mean,
It doesn't take too much of an effort to listen to good music. You just put that kind of crap on because you're so bored that you don't even want to make an effort to figure out what makes you feel good. Because that doesn't make you feel good at all.
no.
It makes you feel something in the background until you just drive home. And then you drive home, and you're home, and what would you do? Do you remember what you've been listening all your way home?
Right.
And on a truck?
That's the other thing about that music is there's no recall to it.
No.
Right?
No, you don't sing it back.
Because there's no melody.
exactly.
Right. So you can't recall it.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more disposable than even the kind of, shit that's been written with melody in the last 10, 15 years.
I mean, melody is the king. I mean, you have to have melodies. And then if the melody is good, it stands up by itself. And if you can put a rhythm section that works, strongly supportive to that melody, you have a hit. It's that simple.
Right.
But you
Right.
cannot have just an intervals that makes the whole market in the world recognizable as a hit. Like that's what we're going through right now in the business.
Right.
Record companies know.
Yeah.
Psychologists know.
Exactly.
What makes us
Yeah.
tick.
But that's you manipulate. It's Orwell. It's a music Orwell. You're manipulating the minds of the young listeners and make them believe that that is exactly what you want to listen to. But it's just one interval all over and all over, all over.
Right.
Manipulated with different words, and most of the time the words are just like, baby, 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 oh, baby. I mean, really?
Right. I've got a good example of this as well.
I was driving somewhere, this is a while ago now, like a couple years ago. But I think that it lasted for quite a while, this poster. And so this poster was on the side of a bus, and it said, and it was a poster for some radio station. And the poster said, you listen to us or something like that because we give you choices. Now, this wasn't a country music station, but they gave you 3 country artists to listen to. Like, it was like, I don't know, Garth Brooks, Keith Urban, and somebody else. I forget the name of it. And they're like, we give you choices. And I'm like, we are so dumb. We are so dumb because we the collective we read that poster. They wouldn't make that poster if it didn't have a fucking effect, right? We read that poster and we go, God damn, there's a radio station giving us a choice. Are you fucking nuts?
They make you believe.
They make you believe, and that's what the industry does, man. It makes you believe that what you're listening to has value, yet it's completely disposable, and you cannot recall it. Certainly not the way that we can recall songs from our past. Everything is pushing fast past us now.
There's always room for the underground. The rebellions, the underground. It's
before it itself becomes, marketed and and
right. Before then.
But I am, I'm fine being labeled as underground. I don't have any problem with that because it's about my integrity, musically speaking. I'm fine. I'm happy with give people who I am. Even if I find 10 guys buying my CDs, at least I have 10 people buying my music. I don't need somebody else tell somebody else, hey,
right,
you buy that guy music because I tell you to buy it. No. I'm playing my music and I give you the option. You can buy it or you can walk away, and you know what? That's totally fine. But if you buy it, then I made my point.
Why can't we be more than
10 people, though, that buy your record? And here's
human nature.
Here's why I ask. No, here's why I ask. Because a guy like you that creates, good music that should be heard, right? If you sell enough of that to people who want to educate themselves, and music was like that. The bebop era was that. It was people wanting to be educated. It was them sitting there long enough to get the payoff, right? And it wasn't 30 seconds, and it wasn't 15 seconds, or they're bored. It was a whole night, and you left with an experience, with an entire experience. And your life, if your life wasn't changed, certainly that moment was transcendent for you.
Well, that's why live music
has a market again, because we are saturated with the music given, from Spotify. I mean, from all these sources that overwhelm the young audiences and the young potential buyers with a bunch of crap, because they just bombarded you with the same kind of stuff without leaving room for you to think outside the box, without leaving you to go to check live music and go like, oh, wait a minute, oh, there are people who can actually play music. So it's a catch-22. You have to, if you're not, this is the era we are living in. What you're talking about, the big band, bebop, hard bop, whatever, until the 60s, we didn't have this kind of system. People used to go out to listen to players and music because that was the only vehicle. So the players were actually selling their artistry on stage.
Right.
It's coming back in a way, but it's not the same. Why? Because opposite to that, you have all this kind of other vehicles. That
Electronic platforms.
Electronic, and anybody can make an album in their basement right now. Back then, you have to go to the studio and spend time and get musicianship. People who could play. It's a different era. It's a catch-22. We can go on forever. I think right now there are two elements, very important elements for artists to get their music out and to get people to like their music. First of all is integrity. It's a personal integrity. You have to start with making music without any distractions, but just concentrate on what kind of message you want to deliver. The second one is marketing. You can choose. You can choose to market your product at different levels. It takes a lot of effort to do that. So you have to choose from 1 to 5 how much effort you want to put into your marketing. And if you just want to do clubs, is level number 1. If you want to do merchandise, level number 2. If you want to have a manager that actually tells you where to go and what to do, you have to pay him, and level number 3. Level number 4, you have a publicist. Level number 5, you're on tour world, but you're not selling your artistry anymore. You have so many people along the line that actually are doing it for you. So. It's your choice what you want to do.
Well, then that's a question.
That begs a question to you. What do you want to do?
Well, I'm too old
to go out there and get to level 5. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm not too old in terms of energy. I think that the time left for players my age, and I built my career being a sideman. That's one decision that I made a long time ago. I can write music. I love to write music. I'm making a living as a sideman, and I really enjoy that because I have the privilege to play with so many talented singers, writers, bands, that makes me feel like I'm growing constantly, despite that I'm in my 50s. And I love that. In my spare time, I would like to find the time to put my music together, which I have a lot of music already.
I'm sure you do, more than I probably know.
If I had the money, if I have somebody to say, okay, here, there are 15 grand, go to the studio in the next 7 days and do an album. I have all the music. I can call the players. I can just go and record a great album. A great album according to my standards.
Right.
I don't know if it's going to be a great album for anybody else. But for me, I'm sure it's going to be great because I want to leave a legacy. I just want to, one day I want to die happy. I want to die looking back and going, you know what? I left something on this planet. Even if it was for 100 people, not for 50 million people, but even if I left something for 100 people, I'm happy about it because those 100 people like what I did. And there's a little bit of egotistic reason because you have 100 people looking after you and going, oh, that was like great stuff, man. But
I guess I don't know if that's
ego or if that's just warranted.
It's a mix. It's both.
Yeah, because you don't create it for that reason. That is just a byproduct of the greatness you create. If it's not great, you're not going to hear it.
I didn't do it for me. I did it.
Right. You don't.
I needed to.
You don't write the music with that thought in mind. That damn, this is so good. You know what I mean? 100 people are going to love me and tell me how amazing I am. You just write because you have to, and you write well because you know how to, right? And then people pick up on that.
But Real Jewel is being written for my wife.
Right.
So that's just
Yeah, that was the motivation.
The
right?
motivation.
Yeah, and
I
it's a
felt
great
like
Tune. I mean, I love that.
It's a celebration of my love.
for the woman that I married.
right. And I've got that song in the car.
in the CD player, and
It's a fun tune.
well, for about a month, I was just listening to the record, front to back, and Sarah get in the car and go, "Jesus Christ, like, can we?"
Can you write something
And I'm
like
like, "Yeah, I know, but listen to this drum part. I mean, this drum part's amazing.
It is amazing.
There was some good shit there. There really was.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what I wanted. I know you say you're a sound man or a side man. I don't know if you're a sound man.
But I know you're a side.
Sometimes.
So yeah, I guess if you have to.
If I have to.
I think the only thing that has started to frustrate me as a side man is that I always feel like I'm at the mercy of someone else. Like if the music is good and the people are good and benevolent and I dig playing with them and they like what I do and everybody's just having a good time, certainly it's not that big of a hassle. But I would really like to have my own thing, just because I would like to be able to control that thing and bring people into that thing.
It comes with responsibilities.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I know it does.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not comfortable.
Meaning you don't think it's worth it?
It is worth it.
Yeah.
But it comes with a lot of decision making. If you're up to it, you're going to be okay. But not everybody is.
Well, that was the whole thing with
With the fusion trio that we had, was that I wanted to have like a meeting every week, once a week, and I wasn't being met with favorable response on that. And I thought, no, we need to remain accountable. We need to know, I need to know what your strength is and what you're going to take care of. I'm not good at that, so you go ahead. But here's where I'm good, I'll take care of that. And every week we get together and we're accountable to each other and we push this thing and move it forward. Because, I came back after a year and there really wasn't a lot there. But there was a lot promised or a lot thought.
Yeah, I'm not getting into that.
Yeah, no, but no, I'm not getting into it. I'm just saying that I think that's a shame, and I think that's the way. If it's a lot of work, then you don't do the workload yourself. I thought that having three guys doing maybe three different tasks was a good approach.
It was good.
And a good way to get things done.
Yeah.
So I look
Moving
back
forward. That's exactly the next project.
moving forward. Ah, well, there you go.
There you go. I didn't help you with that, though. You had that before, right?
Yeah, but you just confirmed it.
But there it is. That's free.
the
I'm not
next
going to
step.
charge you for that. You can have that one.
You know what I mean? So if we move forward, let's say you and I do something, and I would like it to be founded on that basis, on the basis of camaraderie and a business sense.
Absolutely.
And
It will
accountability.
be different.
Yeah, accountability.
Yeah.
And I really, because I can't think of another way to get shit done. I'm not that good at I don't have enough strengths probably to put everything together that would need to be put
together.
teamwork.
It is. It has to be,
always
right?
has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm doing my
online videos. And
Doing
everything
great.
else.
I've been following that. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah?
Brilliant.
You might want to like them too.
Just saying. Just saying.
We've been talking about that.
Just that one button. Just
Hey, I'm with you. Don't worry about it.
yeah. No,
I'm not backing off on anything.
And that's
kind of my first venture out, and I don't know what's to become of it. I think that there's some that there is some great direction in these things. It's kind of funny because I maybe don't talk a lot about groove or anything like that, but I'm giving you all of the tangible elements of groove. I can't teach you the spiritual element of groove because I
There
don't know how
were
to teach
so
the
many,
spiritual
on that album, there were so many.
Statements of groove on different tempos, on different permutations kind of stuff. And there was so many elements and examples that actually would be worth it to transcribe.
Probably, right?
Like certainly the intro to Rare
That's what
Jewel, or at least, even the first
Oh
section.
yeah, all throughout the album.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some moments where you go like, okay, this 16 measures is worth to transcribe it.
Right.
You know.
It just so happens that I suck at transcribing, but
Let your student do it for you.
I should. Somebody's got to be good at that shit, right?
I know there's guys online teaching drum lessons, and they go, thank God for Joe, because if it were left for me to transcribe, I'd never fucking do it. So there's got to be somebody out there that might transcribe that shit. But you're right, yeah, there are those, those moments, and I think Rare Jewel, I think the intro to Rare Jewel is a good example of that.
It's killer.
Yeah, where it's kind of angular and
It was hard for me to keep the one, actually.
But we worked
Somehow
on-
I did it. I don't know.
You did it. And
But what's amazing about that too, this is what's great about creating, I don't know if I want to say great music, maybe that's lofty and arrogant, but the music that we created pushed us so hard, and it pushed us to our limit.
It was great for us.
Well, no, but it was great for us because it pushed us to that point of hanging on, and still grooving, at least.
on some
It was a challenge. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where you challenge yourself, you step out from your comfort zone, and you realize, okay, I just opened the door. Look, there is a completely different world out here. I didn't know about that. If I wouldn't have opened that door, I would never know.
Right.
And that's what that album was for me. Because I wrote, Crisis, I wrote BFD, I wrote Rare Jewel.
Rare Jewel.
But when
Big fucking deal, by the way, BFD. For anybody who's
BFD,
wondering.
big fucking deal. Well,
But when it was on paper, I didn't expect the outcome,
Right.
the result of what we played together, and all of a sudden it was recorded. It was like, damn, it was a completely different story from what I wrote it on paper. Looked like, it might work.
Right.
But then it did work,
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because it pushed, I heard BFD, or I heard, Rare Jewel, certainly. Facelift, was one.
Facelift.
Yeah, right? And Goofy, because, da 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 da.
Humor.
You have to put humor in it.
You do, and we did. We put so many things into that record.
I guess what I was trying to say was that, I know you had a hard time at the beginning, in the inception, of us playing together in that record and everything else, but that was the great thing about doing the record, is that at the end of the record, you knew where I was going to be, and you understood now, if I was playing a 5 or a triplet, spaced 2 notes apart or
By the
something
way,
like that.
We have some copy left, right? To purchase.
Yes.
Well, I do now, thanks to, some benevolent bald-headed gentleman who will remain nameless, Stefano. No, and so anybody that would want a copy can absolutely, hit me up for one of those. I think it's well worth the listen. I think that the feedback too in this town, and that's why I appreciate the guys in this city. Some of the guys in this city.
Yeah.
Like a guy like John McCaslin. He was so complimentary.
Very good.
I mean, the wealth of music in this town is underestimated, but the community is huge.
The community has huge potential, and I think that that's something that we need to. I think we need to focus on that a little bit more. You and I were talking a little bit, about this whole 150, and the fact that, we're alone in a crowd. We're not accountable to one another anymore because we don't have to be. As a matter of fact, we don't even know that if I say that to you, if I say, that we're not accountable to each other anymore, people go, well, what are you talking about, man? Like, I don't need to be accountable to you, dude. I got Facebook, man. That sort of attitude.
Yeah.
But really in this, when you and I grew up, there was more accountability. Your peers.
Responsibilities. You're responsible for your actions, and you are aware of that, and you take
you take it as a man.
And your friends remind you of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You take it as a person. I don't want to be a gender, you take it as a person because, it doesn't matter if you're a male or female. In music, I don't believe as a gender. There are some gorgeous musicians on both sides. And
You mean good looking or?
Both, yeah.
Okay.
Good looking and
talented.
Yeah.
And they take responsibilities for their choices, musically speaking, and they go for it. And those are the winners. Those are the fighters. Those are the lions. They just put their music out there and they go for it because they believe it. And actually, I have to say, lately, in the last 10, 15 years, I've seen a lot of female players, not only sidemen, but just writers, composers, arrangers, orchestrators, and they just, these ladies are so firm into their action, into their decision, that actually is inspirational. I found it really, musicians and professionals that are looking outside the box, they take responsibilities, they go for it, and they teach lessons to the males who think that they actually own the pride. It's not like that anymore. It's all about music. It's all about who you are. It doesn't matter the gender, and I love that.
Yeah, we're becoming more smart about that kind of thing.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I think in some ways we've kind of gotten stupid about it.
Oh,
When we talk about gender neutrality and gender pronouns and LGBTQRS, LMNOP. I still think that. I think if we keep going, that's the way we're going to teach kids the fucking alphabet. Is by all these things, and I think it's time to stop. Personally, I think that we know if you're gay, and everybody's okay with that. Let's move on.
Why not?
Or a woman, or whatever you are.
What is the
we're
problem?
doing a good
Why
job.
do people have a problem with that? I just don't get it.
Of what?
About just gender and inclinations, whatever is sexual inclinations or religion. I mean, one of my best friends, when I was in my, the CANTON, the band that I was in Europe,
Right.
the band leader was gay. He realized he was gay when he was 12 years old. We started making music together when we were 15, and I knew he was gay. He told me he was gay, and I had so are we still making music together?
Yeah, what's
or
for
what?
lunch? What's for lunch?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, what's the problem? Okay, I don't have any problem with that.
Right.
Let's make music together. He was like, oh, you cool with that?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. What are we talking about here? We're wasting time. Let's make music.
Yeah, exactly.
You're my best friend.
Well, now,
Oh, I don't
we know-
care.
We know that when you and I were growing up, though, there was, there were, a lot of, queers, gays, getting the shit
that's
kicked out of themselves.
Well, the mentality back then was a completely different world. I mean, we had to deal with the old school and whatever it was. But I felt it was very uncomfortable for people to just stick with their own old mentality because they were stuck in the mud. They were not moving. We got to move. We got to move, man. We have to just let this out there. This and this combined together out there. If you just stick with the old-fashioned stupid mentality, we're stuck in the mud. We're not going anywhere. We're not letting people to be the potential.
Right.
You're just cutting, it's just like having a great marathon runner, but you just break his leg before you get started. I mean, what is that good for?
Right.
I mean, this guy could win the marathon, but because his inclinations, he's not allowed to run.
Right. Well,
But now it's reversed. Now it's if you don't like the gay guy, you can't run. And no, you know what I mean?
No,
And
I know. But
that's
see,
where
but,
I'm
but
having
that's,
a problem.
but that's the exaggerate. That's the extreme.
But that's what's
opposite
happening.
way.
That's what's happening. Look at guys like Jordan Peterson.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But think about hang on.
we
Think
have to
about
get-
guys like Jordan Peterson, that the psychology prof at the U of T. I mean, that's why he's so world renowned now, is because he fought the whole gender pronoun issue. And he got in a lot of shit for just saying, because there's actually a law in the books now in Ontario that if somebody asks you to call them by a specific pronoun or whatever, and you don't, you can be brought up on charges for that. And I'm like, now we're starting to take away freedom of speech, right? Now, I don't have to. Out of respect, I can do that. But if we start to do that socially, then we start to have a problem.
We have to go through that.
We have to.
We have to go through that, to that stage, because
Right.
before it was no tolerance. Now is the opposite. Where is the balance? Right in the middle. But
Right.
to get into the middle, to get back to the middle, you have to bounce from no tolerance to over tolerance, which is no tolerance on the other way.
Yeah.
The end of the spectrum. So you have to bounce the ball on the other way, and eventually it will bounce back in the middle, because people are people, and people will.
I suppose.
People know where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
We all get it, but you need time. You need time.
Right.
We have to go through this in terms to get to know where we're at. So it's human nature. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine.
Well, no, I get that it's human nature, and I know that that's how many things progress. That's how you know what I mean. I mean, it's exaggerated on one side, then it becomes on the other side, like you're saying, and then you find an equilibrium. You find that balance, right?
Right.
Thing is that I don't know that we're doing that. I don't know that it is the same sort of construct that has been that historically. Where it goes far, and then it goes the other way, and then it balances out. I think that politically, and in terms of what we're facing, globally, some of the issues that we have there, I see more stupidity than ever before. And I see less accountability, and I see people getting away with, the bullshit, like having to call you a gender pronoun. I think there's 85 of them now, right? And they actually, I don't know if they did it, but they were going to put men, women, and then whatever else, right? They were going to start putting these bathrooms in downtown in Calgary. I don't know if they did it, but there was a big thing about it a couple years ago. And I'm like, well, if you have 84 pronouns, then we need 84 fucking bathrooms. Every time you see a bathroom, you have 84 choices. And I'm like, come on, people. We're just being ridiculous. I think that in terms of our society and where things are going, we just need to dialogue. You need to know that, I'm not you, but people need to know that if they're gay or whatever, you're accepted now. We accept you. We don't beat you up anymore. That's a thing of the past. And that's nothing, like slavery was. And there's no use in trying to draw that parallel. You know what I mean? I mean, it was just a blip on the screen, and now we're back. So, yeah, I don't think we need to worry about those things. And I'll tell you what, that if we, incurred some Mad Maxian, difficulty on the planet, none of that shit would matter anymore, my friend. The only thing that we care about is our survival. Nobody'd be going, hey, I'm gay and you got to call me. Nobody's, you know what I mean? We would just slap that person upside the head and say, shut up, we need to survive.
At the end of the day, people are people.
Right now, we're going through delicate times. Patience is a virtue. I believe that people at the end of the day will come to their senses, and even if right now we find a lot of people to the end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, it's because they need to hear their voices heard. But deep inside, they know that at the end of the day, they don't need to fight too hard, because people are people and we understand each other. It just the sign of the time. You have to be patient. Patience is a virtue.
Of course it is.
I totally agree. I just don't know that we've ever been in this place before.
We have to be in this place now. We have to.
Well,
to understand where the right place is.
We need to be here now.
Right.
Well, I certainly hope we we figure it out.
We will.
I hope the ball bounces.
We will.
It always did, always will. People are people. People are good people.
Right.
I do agree with that. I do tend to agree with the inherent goodness of the individual.
Yes.
I think that we are easily manipulated, though. I think that we do have a selfish part of us that in some it doesn't take much to live in that place and to forget about the goodness that we inherit and I suppose that's such a loaded topic because I mean those things have to do with childhood issues, those things have to do with so many things that we can't, how can we get into it? You can't get into that.
But you have...
Everybody has a built-in integrity. We can be manipulated easily. History teaches us, how many ways people can manipulate minds easily. And I'm not going to get into that. But what I'm saying is, I believe that everybody has a self-built integrity. Except for the psychopath. That's a different category.
Right, I'm thinking Jeffrey Dahmer.
The majority
You
of
might have
us,
had an issue with that.
majority of us,
We have an integrity built in.
Right, he asked Jeffrey Dahmer that. He said, well, easy for you to say. Sure, you have it.
no, so it will come out.
It'll come out. At the end of the day, it'll come out. When you need to dig in yourself and see who you really are, that particular aspect of yourself will come out. So I believe in people. I'm a people person. I believe in people.
You are a people person, and so, where are you at? You're a happy guy these days.
No, I'm not happy.
You're not.
I'm serene. Happiness
Really?
is a moment. Happiness is not a statement.
Ah.
It's a moment. You can be happy here and there for a little amount of time. The secret of life, in my opinion, is serenity. You have to be serene. Happiness is bullshit.
So when you say serene,
Does that mean
Content.
You have to know who you are.
right?
You wake up every morning happy to be alive. Get up, do your thing, love your family, love your friends. Don't give the finger on the freeway to other people who cut you off, and just end up the day in a very constructive and with integrity. Integrity is to do the right thing when nobody's watching, and that's my credo.
Well, as long as I've
known you, I've pretty much liked you.
Thank you.
And
I
I guess
appreciate it.
From a man like you, I really appreciate your support.
no.
I mean, your friendship. I love you, man.
Well, you
for me, you've just been you've been an honest guy.
I'm trying to
From my observances, you've been an honest guy. You're a benevolent guy.
I'm a decent man.
You play your ass off. You know what you do in this life, in this world, the path that you've chosen, and the artistry that you possess, shows that integrity.
Thank you.
And so I'm glad I know you. I hope for us, for both of our sakes, and for the sake of others, that we have the opportunity to put something together again.
Oh, that's a fact. It's not going to be just a dream. It's going to happen.
right,
It's going to happen.
right, and
I look forward to that. I just,
Thank you.
I had a bucket list moment, when we went into the studio with Pat Bellabo
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
so, and I'm not really much for bucket lists, it's kind of like Bill Maher said. He said, when I was old enough to have a bucket list, he's like, fuck, I don't want to do that anyway, so I don't have a lot of things on that list, but
Bucket list. What is that all about?
I don't know, who knows, but I was very grateful for that moment.
It was a great session. I loved it.
Yeah, it really was. And so I think we can wrap it up. You good?
I'm
How many hours that been?
I don't know, 6?
Or we
I
can
don't
go
know.
forever.
Yeah, we could. You and I could. I'm going to just,
To be continued.
well, absolutely, you're coming back.
Because I think we need to do this again, and I think that,
Yeah.
anytime you want, I mean, we're just friends anyway, it doesn't matter, does it?
Anytime you want me,
Yeah.
you know, you got a lot of people that you want to have here on
Yeah,
this show. So
yeah.
just, you know, get them up on this.
Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
you know,
good.
I'm so
Thanks.
privileged to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, I want to, I mean, once again,
This show is called Unsung. I think that in some ways it's expanded a little bit, and it's about a few more things
Yeah.
than just that. I think that socially, I think we need to be a little bit more aware,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of bullshit, you
I really
know.
appreciate what you're doing. You're just bringing up, you know, people that they have something to say, and it's important what they have to say. And most of the time they don't have the opportunity to say it. So
Yeah,
you're giving people, and musicians and artists in the community, to come up here and just have a nice chat and get to know them better and let them speak up. It's great. I just thank you so much for having me. I love
dude,
that.
Dude,
I love
and my whole premise about this thing was that, I mean, we know,
Like 20-year-olds and the names of those people, that are just starting out. We know, well, no, I can't think of his name, but, who's the kid, the Canadian kid that made, billions of dollars singing? Young kid. What the hell? Everybody, that's watching this is going to go, well, his name is
I'm
that.
so unprepared about it.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
anyway,
Justin?
yes, Justin Bieber.
Oh,
Justin
okay,
Bieber.
okay.
Right. I mean,
It's not a kid anymore, you know.
Well, no, I know.
Well, Brazil took care of that, didn't it?
Yeah.
One night in a hotel room with a couple of Brazilians. That pretty much did it. But my point is that we know, this 18-year-old, 14-year-old, 22-year-old, kid named Justin Bieber, and yet, we don't recognize each other. And, nothing against Justin Bieber. It's just that, I don't know if you master something at that young of an age. They said that Mozart was writing symphonies at 5, right? That he wrote his first symphony at 5 or 6. But nobody really knows what that, huh?
I think it was 8.
8, but nobody knows. Well,
Still not bad, for an 8-year-old. I was still drooling, and I could hardly say my name at 8. Mind you, I am a drummer. But anyway, there. See, I just did it to myself. But he wrote his first symphony at 8, but nobody really knows what that is, and nobody knows really how good it was. The fact that he did it at 8 is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a master at 8. He was just a kid that had this propensity and had this ability to do it.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it was good, but certainly he went on to greatness. And that's my point, is that I think a lot of people in this city have achieved a certain level of mastery and greatness. And I want to hear their names. I want to know their names. I want their names to be on the lips of people's the same way that Justin Bieber's is.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's where true value lies, in honoring the masterful and telling the others to get their shit together, and maybe someday they'll be that too.
Well, thank you for doing that.
that's what I want to do.
Thank you.
That's great.
So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in and letting us yak. And I don't know who's going to be on next week, but I think it'll be a good one. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.